You can't. That's like us having an Oasis podcast and not knowing anything.
Well, that's
like
pretty,
we do. Like,
that's pretty close.
Is it the fourth Apes? The fifth Apes film was going to be a Robbie Williams biopic. She won't forsake me. I'm loving podcasts instead. Welcome to the Mad for It podcast, the road to Wembley 2025 with your boys, Josh, Tom, and Adam. Today we've got a good one for you. It's feuds. We all love a good feud. We love beef.
Love a scrap.
And guess who has more beef than the rest? More beef than a butcher.
Oasis.
It's the Oasis boys.
Them
The Noel
boys.
Gallagher brothers. The brothers Gallagher. They're mad for it. They're mad for controversy. And we're going to talk about it today. We've all picked one, haven't we?
I think so. Yeah.
We've got a feud that we're all excited
Got
to.
a few, actually.
So, okay, I'll start with you, Tom.
Well, actually, I was going to start with you because I think we should announce what you're dressed in, and I think it leads quite well into one of the great feuds. So, if you'd like to maybe stand up and show us what you've
in
got.
tribute of one of our victims of the Gallaghers tonight, I've gone with my Genesis tour vest from, I don't know what year it is. Something
It's
in the
inside
80s.
out, mate. You're wearing it back to front.
I wonder why the buttons were like that. I was like, it must be an 80s thing or something.
It's Genesis, baby. That means it's Phil Collins.
Where did you buy that?
I got a Vinted, sponsored by Vinted.
Oh, so you chose to buy that?
Yeah, I chose to buy it. I got a good deal on it. I think I got it for 25 quid.
25 quid.
Wow.
Yeah. You're saying that like that's a lot of money.
It is.
This is a vintage
Jesus. Yeah, what is
body
that?
warmer.
Yeah, so that was like a tour crew jacket thing?
I don't think it was. I think you could buy it.
Oh,
Yeah.
just anyone on the street?
Anyone, you go
has
there, you
access
go
to
see
it.
Genesis, wherever they were playing.
You wear body
You could
warmers.
wear this, you go down to
Your
pool
local
hall or
civic hall,
whatever.
yeah.
What
you
did
can-
people do in the 80s for fun?
Smoked.
Darts.
Yes, you go to local smoking room or whatever they did, a bus stop and smoking a plane wearing it.
I love this. I've never seen anything
No,
like it
that's-
as a band merch before. So maybe we can get one of those at the reunion gig.
Yeah.
We'll end up with the puffers,
Yeah,
Oasis puffers.
That'd be very blur, I think,
Yeah,
rather than
yeah,
Oasis.
The
it's
gilet.
Body warmer,
Could have-
gilets, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Very blur
I'm surprised
vibes.
there isn't any Adidas Gazelles coming out. Like,
Yeah. Well,
there is Adidas Gazelles coming out. Oasis Gazelles.
I've seen people on TikTok making their own and stuff, doing well for themselves. You
What
know?
they-
But then you tread in a puddle.
It's
Remember-
done,
Remember
innit?
when people used to have like plimsolls and then they'd like draw on them and get their mates to draw on them, like when you were a teenager? That
Oh,
could
what, the
come
white
back. We
ones?
make
Oh,
your own
yeah.
Oasis
Yeah.
trainers. Like
Here we are.
they could even sell them just blank, and then it's like create your own adventure.
And a pen.
Yeah, yeah.
there we
They
go.
do that in like touristy places where you go and you can get like a pair of like knockoff Converse and the spray paint fire or like a Harry Potter thing on it. It's
Yeah.
like,
Oh, yeah.
Liam
Sweet.
Gallagher's head.
like crap. Like, yeah.
So where did the beef between the brothers and Phil come from? How
Well,
far back does this go?
It's not. I don't think it's the brothers. It's more Noel. It's. I assume it's exclusively Noel, but then Liam's probably jumping on his side after the fact. So it's started originally that Noel Gallagher said in an article sometime in the 90s that Phil Collins was the Antichrist. And
He's not far off, right?
It seems to have started because Phil Collins knocked the Jam off #1 in the 80s with the
Oh.
song "You Can't Hurry Love."
My beloved
And
Jam.
he says that he's like he said in some other article that his goal is to have the head of Phil Collins in his fridge by the end of the decade. So he's really gunning for Phil Collins.
Wow, no
And
holds
I
barred.
think this was exclusively a one-way feud for a long time.
Sure, definitely.
And Phil Collins is just like, I like Phil Collins. Do you guys like Phil Collins?
Definitely not. I was not allowed to listen
No,
to two
no.
people at home, and it was Phil Collins and you two.
Well,
I was
your
banned.
dad was a big Jam fan,
He
so
was a
that
huge
explains
Jam
it. He
fan.
knocked him off #1 with "You Can't Hurry Love."
Yeah, I think that might have been the catalyst.
Human.
And I think Genesis were a bit too like proggy and weird and awkward for anyone.
Well, they were till old Peter Gabriel left,
right,
and then it's just Phil Collins with a band.
right, okay.
So, but I like Phil Collins like enough to buy a. I bought this decided to talk about this. I bought this as a fan. Like I like Phil Collins. There's like there's him playing in like Berlin or something in like the early 90s.
Right.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
He's up there. He's got like his shirt, this little baldy thing. He's playing drums to start, and he comes out and just like like the hip swing. I mean, he's lame as anything. He's
Yeah, it's
the
very-
whitest bloke in the world.
It's
called
proper
Phil.
50s, wasn't it? Yeah, Phil.
It's like
Where'd you go?
Phil. Oh, the front man, Phil's in.
Phil's in.
But
Philip.
he is the 80s.
Did you know Phil Collins actually a stage name?
Is it? What's he called?
No, it's not.
Oh,
Simon. Simon Collins.
yeah.
Even cooler.
Colin Phils.
But yeah, so I'm a fan of Phil Collins. I don't take offense to Noel's comments. Not one bit.
You still Team Noel?
They're obviously deliberately jokey, right? They're over the top, but to me, compared to some of the other ones that maybe we'll get onto, which seem a bit like cruel spirited, like having his head in my fridge is obviously like a silly thing. He doesn't actually want that. He's making a joke.
He's a mid-20-year-old lad at the time. And they're making music, and Phil Collins is the music before them. So it's definitely coming out of a sense of, oh, that's lame, isn't it? He's buttoned down.
Well, with Phil, you can tell that it's like what Alan Partridge would call a soft target.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
He's not going to fight back, and if he does, everyone's on Noel's side, like throughout history, you know.
So that Phil did fight back one time. Well, I think he's mentioned it a couple of times, but one of the times he was on Room 101.
Yes.
I can't remember if it was with Frank Skinner at the time or whoever did it before.
Was it Phil Jupiter's?
Paul Merton.
Paul Merton. Yeah, he was probably with old PM when he was doing it.
PC and PM.
And he put Phil Collins. No, he didn't put Phil. He put Noel Gallagher or Oasis into Room 101.
Yeah.
And his comments were just like, they're shit to me for no reason whatsoever. And they just say all these remarks to him.
So he has taken it to heart then. So I'm there saying, it seems like flippant to me, but obviously Phil has taken it to heart if he's going onto television and slagging them off.
He'd be in the newspapers, right? If someone's we're talking about Phil Collins because of that. So I mean, it definitely worked as far as that goes. With Room 101, did you have to put stuff in? Could you nominate stuff and then talk yourself down? That's how I remember it.
I think you nominated it, and then the presenter decided, or the audience decided, and then it would go down, or they'd like rescue it. So
so Oasis went in. They were gone.
They actually went in though.
They went in.
Okay, people won them
in. Phil Collins did say something about it. He was like, they keep having a pop at me, and I don't know why. It's kind of like you're bullied, like, and you don't know the people, and everybody's going like, oh, and then you add 7, there's probably people yelling, you shit, Phil. Phil Collins is wank, and it's all like younger guys who are into Oasis, because he basically was Mr. 80. He was like one of the kings of the 80s. It's like Michael Jackson, Phil Collins, hand in hand, the powerhouse.
I guess so. You couldn't get away from it. That means one thing. I mean, in South Park, they did an episode where, for some reason, Phil Collins was a hill. I think it was called Phil Collins Hill, and you would race toboggans down it, but it was never like mentioned specifically. So anyone can just rip the piss out of him for any reason.
But so he was like, he wasn't too happy with it. He said that they think they've got more talent than they do, and he said something else. They're greater than they are. They're not as talented or something. And it's like, because he did his memoir. And I listened to the audio version of that one specific bit of him talking about it.
So you haven't got the book. We're not going to get Phil Collins' memoir on the desk.
No, I'd read it though.
They just have a drum beat in the background. The whole audio book.
He stops to do a solo between each chapter. But he goes on about, he liked Oasis, I think, when they came out. He was like, oh, this is cool. It's like interesting. And then I think he heard about the Phil Collins is the Antichrist. And he was that's a bit odd.
That was it. He was gone.
Yeah, he was like, oh, that's a bit odd. Like, that's unfair. Like, what's he doing? He's a 40-something-year-old bloke who was king of the world. And then there's not much. There's some more remarks. But then he was on holiday somewhere. And he'd go to this bar every day. And the owner was like, oh, he went up to him. He tells it in such like a really like old manny way of like if you had like a grandparent and went somewhere like, oh, you should have some music in here. You should get some music playing each night. And the bar guy was like, the bar owner was like, it's a great idea. And Phil was like, yeah, I'll do it. I'll come up. I'll play some drums and sing. We'll get like a band together. And then a few nights later, a few weeks later after they were setting it up, he was going to do it, I think, that night. And then Noel Gallagher was in there with his ex-wife or his wife or his girlfriend or something at the time. And I think it was Kate Moss. And Phil Collins is there. And he's like, he's going to go up and do this like live performance. And he goes over and he's like, oh, I'm going to ask Noel if he wants to join in. So he's probably gone over. He's like, oh, you're right, chaps. How's it going? How's your night going? And then they were literally just so rude to him, like Noel Gallagher. And his girlfriend was like, you're shit. Noel Gallagher's girlfriend was just outright like, "You're crap. You're what's wrong with music or something." And it's like Noel Gallagher's just that, like, not Noel Gallagher. Phil Collins is just like, come up, being a nice guy, and there's like these younger people, and they're like, "Oh well, it can't be as bad. It's all just hearsay." And then you're on holiday. Oh, he's like lives out there, and you come, and then the bully that you've been hearing about who's calling you shit is there, and then they call you shit to your face and kind of embarrass you in the place, your safe space. And then he's like, "Oh, whatever." He left it. He says he gave it no notice, and then Kate Moss came up, and he was at the bar and was like apologizing for it. So she's like, "Yeah, I'm sorry." She probably loves Phil Collins. And it's like, "Oh, yeah, they're a bit out of order, aren't they?" And then it was like, whatever. So he went off to go play, and they left or something. I think they said that they're like, "There's no way we'd want to." He put the offer out there, and they're like, "Fuck off," basically.
Be like the emptiest bar in Mallorca if Phil Collins was playing every night. It would drive customers away.
Everyone having egg and chips and then leaving.
And then he went up to play, and I think he started playing, and they left. Or something, or they left before, and it's like,
what is this bar? Like, we need to go there and have a look at it. Like,
I don't think we could afford to go there.
Expo report.
Multi-millionaires of the 90s are going there. It's not
real
Camber
lads,
Sands or Lanzarote.
Yeah, it'll be so
you got only falls on the TV and everything.
Yeah, we'll have to go. What was that bar when we went on your stag do? What was that bar that we went to a bar in Portugal? And what was there was a cover band playing, and they started playing a song, and you were enraged. And what was it? It wasn't Phil Collins, was it? It was Dire Straits.
Yeah,
it was
Dire
Money
Straits.
for Nothing.
Yeah. I mean, Dire Straits are up here with the worst band of all time next to like Phil Collins. Like he did the Tarzan soundtrack. You know, I was a boy once. Yeah. I've got a heart. You know, and 2 ears. I'm a human. Fine. Tarzan went hard, but yeah, Dire Straits, don't put that stuff around me. Oh, man, we're not doing a Mark Knopfler thing. We're not bringing that up. It's over. Move on.
I love the Knopf. I like that one album. There's a few songs. I wouldn't say I'm deep into it, but Money for Nothing, if I get that on the car, as the maddest intro of any song ever. So if you got it turned up really loud, it feels like your head's going to explode.
Yeah, for that is awful as well.
Oh, it's so good.
It makes me angry.
I went to see Bruce Springsteen a few years ago, and my mum was like, "Oh, I love Bruce Springsteen. He's really great. I love that song, Microwave Oven." I was like, "What?" I don't know. And it took us ages to realize she thought we was going to go see Dire Straits. It's like, yeah, no, it's not. It's
similar vibe, sort of.
Well, it's funny.
Both as bad as each other.
She used to go to Magaluf when she was younger, which I hate to think what was going on.
She went to a bar and Bruce Springsteen
in
was on in the corner on the drums.
She was like, they play that all the time. So that's like the equivalent of going in here Despacito or like Avicii. Back in the 80s, it was like Dire Straits. You go out dancing to Dire Straits and Phil Collins.
I didn't grow up then.
Noel also said something about Sting. It was like Phil Collins and Sting. He was just like, my job is to just knock them off the top and get rid of them because they're fast food music. They're like McDonald's.
That's what Sting said about
Destroyed. That's
Oasis.
what Noel said about Sting and Phil Collins. Oh. They're fast food.
He is picking such easy targets, though.
Yeah, he's aiming high.
It's too easy. It's fish in a barrel, isn't it? Sort of music that's already considered a bit naff by that point, and then to have a go at it.
But they were probably the last. Well, whatever. But like the big. Who have you got? If Oasis are this high in '96, it's like there's only so many more people you can go for.
Yeah, but it's like the modern equivalent of just saying, "Oh, Coldplay are lame." It's like. Yeah.
Well, it's funny you should say that actually because anyway. Noel had a feud with Coldplay as well, which we'll get into. So,
but then "Don't Look Back in Anger" is almost like a every breath you take kind of thing. Like it has that like lame kindness to it. He's no better than them.
No, he's not.
No better than them.
He took the money. He played the stadiums. He takes the money.
Exactly, and he said something about someone in his band or something played a Genesis song, and he heard it, and he was like, "This is Genesis." And Noel was like, "This song's amazing." He's talking about it on something because they asked him about his feud. And then he was like, "But this sounds weird. It sounds something off." And he looked up like the liner notes to see it. And Phil Collins didn't play on that. Oh. So he's like, it's just Phil Collins. And he's like, the fact that Phil Collins wasn't on the album, I can listen to that. But I'm not going to give any time to Phil Collins on any drums.
Well, I'm totally on Noel's side with that one.
But also, I've got a bone to pick with Zane Lowe.
Okay.
Who brought this up on Gonzo. And he's kind of like needling Noel with it. Fuck you, Zane Lowe. Such a middle of the road guy now on Apple Music, and I bet you'll have Phil Collins on one day. I bet you'll have Noel on. I could see right through you, you turncoat. But that's basically what I've got.
What did he do wrong?
he's a little shithead, wasn't he, on Gonzo? He's just like, yeah, I'm cool. I'm from New Zealand.
Yeah, he brought a lot of music to us, though.
How many years ago was that?
That was 20 years ago.
20 years ago.
Still harbouring the grudge.
Yeah, he annoys me. He annoys me even more now. Like, he's just so.
Yeah, he is really
it's
like
so great.
now.
Oh, it's like, shut up.
Yeah.
You don't like music that much.
No one does.
If you do, I don't want to be near you, you freak.
Look, we're team Steve Lamacq.
Yeah,
forget his own law. We're team Lamacq.
Yeah, where are you saying? You're not on BBC anymore. You went and sucking at the teat of Apple. You corporate shill. So yeah, that's the beef of Noel Gallagher and Phil Collins, and so
there's been a lot of hate so far, but I want to go to an artist that I wouldn't say I love, but I don't mind.
Okay,
Robbie Williams, who's had a long running feud, and then friendship, and then feud again, perhaps with the Gallagher brothers. So, this one's an interesting one because obviously he's in Take That. He's seeing the rise of Britpop, the rise of Oasis, and he's like, I like the look of this. I'm going to be friends with those guys. They're cool. It sort of apparently prompts some of the exit from Take That. He disappears. They're best friends. And then the falling out happens. Noel calls him the fat dancer from Take That, which is very funny. And also is stuck because people literally say that now, probably 30 years later. But at some point, they've obviously buried the hatchet because they become, well, Robbie's very nice about them, especially Liam, but there's never them nice about him. But it seems like he's killing them with kindness. That's all good. But also then when the reunion was announced, he sort of got a couple of digs in saying it could be ghoulish.
Yeah, I saw
what he said, which it feels like he's reigniting that touch paper again.
Get his name back in the papers and throw the muck.
Well, it might be because he has his new autobiography film coming out where he's played by a monkey.
Yeah,
which apparently does feature the Gallagher brothers quite heavily in there. So
we were saying like that's the best possible thing you can do with a biopic, right? Because we've got little Timmy C is going to play Bob Dylan in an upcoming biopic.
Yeah.
And we're just like, oh, we don't need this. Like, no one needs this. It might introduce a few people to him, fine, to Bob Dylan, fine. But show me Robbie Williams as a monkey, and I'll pay to go and see that because that just sounds so stupid and so
wild.
Yeah, all right, you've got my attention. You know, it's creative, it's stupid, it gets Robbie so he doesn't have to be in the mocap suit, so he can dance around like a 25-year-old. He can just sit on the couch and make the royalties.
Do you think he was watching Planet of the Apes?
Yeah,
like the new Planet of the
Andy
Apes.
Serkis.
And he was like, "That's it.
That's it.
King Kong.
That's it." Because it looks like a Planet of the Ape, like ape. So it's got to be like the same people making it. Like it's the same guy did Rocket Man.
Maybe he's watching Tarzan with the Phil Collins soundtrack.
It's all coming together. The ape universe is coming together.
Oh mate, we didn't realize that the fifth Apes film was going to be a Robbie Williams biopic.
Yeah, it's a good way to spin something off.
Give me more ape.
Yeah, and at the end they'll go to war and there'll be a bunch of apes on horses and they'll collide.
My thing about the feud with Robbie is at the start it's sort of punching down at him, but then at the peak of his fame, he is as famous as Oasis. He's selling out Nebworth. He's doing exactly what they did. He's just as famous. Which maybe is why the sort of peak of the argument comes at the Brit Awards in 2000, where he offers Liam $100,000 to fight him. To fight him, which
Liam, $100,000 of your money, $100,000 of my money. We'll get in the ring and we'll have a fight, and you can all watch it on TV. What do you think about that?
What if he rises to the challenge? What are you going to do?
I'll fight him.
That's why I think it is a bit spiteful compared to like Collins, where I think it's sort of said in like a deliberately jovial way.
Right.
Getting someone to come back and say, "I'll give you $100,000 and we'll fight for it," is absolutely nuts behaviour.
Could you imagine that though? Like, what would that have been? 98, kind of maybe 97, 98. That would have been peak.
Robbie would have battered him.
And if that was today, that would be like MMA thing, and they'd set it up like no problem at all.
Like Robbie's in good shape. Liam's like kind of like lanky. That's like all he's got. Robbie was like actually in good shape.
Yeah.
Once he toned down from being the fat dancer, Take That, which I think he did have an eating disorder post that. So that probably.
We don't laugh about that. Of course.
Did it come up in that documentary where he just just sits on the bed and watches his own clips?
It was 5 episodes long of him talking about himself. So the thing that documentary about Robbie Williams didn't go into, it might have mentioned it, but I can't remember. It's like his love of UFOs, or he's a believer.
And that's where my love of him was cemented. In that, if I had millions of pounds, of course I would just take 2 years off and just go and try and find UFOs in the Nevada desert,
just like
and
Tom
just see what happens. That's like an amazing use of like your wealth.
He claims one came into his living room in LA, and he had it open. It flew in.
It wasn't
and then zipped off.
Yeah, it wasn't like cocaine or anything that just made him completely bug out.
Yeah, the remnants of his brain being destroyed by being a drug addict. He was talking about it on a podcast with who's that beats the out of his girlfriends. Yeah, it was ex-wife's podcast on UFOs.
Well, that's a mouthful.
Yeah.
Sentences you never think you'll hear.
And yeah, she's like, oh, I love UFOs, I love aliens, and she's talking about it. And Robbie's like talking about all this stuff. And she's mentioning things that are like, if you know about aliens and UFOs, these are quite common names. And he's like, oh yeah, you know Bob Lazar, who's like a big whistleblower for UFOs. And she's like, no, who's that? And it's like, you can't, that's like us having an Oasis podcast and not knowing anything.
Well,
like
we
do.
That's pretty close.
Exactly.
We didn't know that the first 3 songs on Heathen Chemistry were, what was it?
Dig Out Your Soul.
No, what the other one that we can't even name? Don't Believe the Truth.
Don't Believe the Truth.
Is that it? And we didn't know that those are the running.
You can't even remember the name of the album we talked about last week.
And I think it's probably my 3rd favourite album of theirs based on those tracks.
Can I give you a little exclusive out there about Robbie? So when he's lying on that bed in that Los Angeles hotel room and he sees an unexpected object fly through the air, it was actually an Oasis CD. Someone pinged through the window, just caught the light on the way through.
Well, I've seen a thing came up on YouTube about how he apparently stole Angels. I told you guys about this. So he went to Ireland after Take That, or after some kind of bust up with Take That. Went to Ireland for some reason to kind of just chill out and just do his thing. Or he might have been on tour. I don't know. I should get my facts straight before I start talking about stuff. So Robbie Williams went to Ireland and he met up with a singer-songwriter in a bar, and they, were mucking around and chatting and stuff. They went back to his, and together they wrote Angels. Now, when Robbie left and went back to London, he denied ever meeting this guy or that he wrote it or anything. But apparently this musician, this singer-songwriter guy had lost a child and lost his wife. So, I'm seeing, what is it? I'm seeing angels instead.
I'm loving
angels. I can't remember it. I'm loving angels instead. It makes a lot of sense in that guy's world at that guy's time. And he just had Robbie sing on it. And then apparently Robbie nicked it. So, thoughts? Would Robbie steal? Would our Robbie steal from a?
I mean, he doesn't really write his songs, does he? It was the other guy, Guy Garvey.
Guy Chambers.
Guy Chambers.
Guy Garvey.
That was Elbow.
Elbow, yeah.
That's like the modern equivalent. If the Gallagher brothers were like, "Oh, Elbow, they're shit, aren't they?" But it's just they're so soft.
Yeah,
such a soft thing to say. Is people think they're a bit naff anyway. That he's a nice lad, and he's in right. Car share. That's good. But they're a bit naff, a bit soft targety.
Yeah. There's a funny story like that with Oasis. There's a similar story to that about one of the songs. I think it must have been Noel, because he writes all the songs. He was out in Ireland. He went over to County Mayo in the early 2000s, and he saw there was an Irish bloke performing in a pub, and he got chatting with him. It was like a similar thing.
Yeah, sounds like.
And he was they had a little kind of piano just in there, and he was sat with him all night drinking, having some cigarettes and stuff. And then he played a song for him, and Noel took that and went with it. But this guy was an older bloke. He was a 90-something-year-old geezer. And so Noel took that back, and he took all the lyrics even, and the melody, and he went back and wrote the song Lila.
Right, so another classic feud between the Gallagher brothers and a celebrity. This one being Noel, as ever, seems to be always him for all of the feuds, is Jay-Z. Does anyone remember Jay-Z? He was going to play Glastonbury. They put the lineup out, and Noel moaned that we shouldn't have hip hop, and he shouldn't be the headliner at Glastonbury. We can have Kylie Minogue and we can have all these people, but it's not right. And then Jay-Z went on stage and did Wonderwall. And he had that strat around him, and he wasn't playing anything, and he sung it out of key, and it was really bad. But
he was playing it.
He wasn't.
He was playing it.
Yeah, badly. It wasn't performed very well.
Yeah, he was playing it though.
I thought it was a backing track.
No,
this is
he actually played.
This is about 16 years ago. I can't remember now.
Yeah, he played that. He did. That's a good thing that he did. He's been slagged off, and Jay-Z's well, do you know what's going to be the funnier thing? Is go up and play Wonderwall badly.
Yes.
I don't think he thought it was going to be good.
It won the crowd over. It won us over.
I think that's one of the rare ones where actually someone has got the upper hand over Oasis, though, because him coming out there and just playing it and not rising to it, he's just like, yeah, I can play your songs. I can play, a guitar. I can play an instrument. He's really got the better of them. And I actually saw there was an interview with like Noel afterwards where they sort of asked him about it. And Noel's sort of like, oh, I didn't watch it. Which is sort of like, that's it. You've been beaten. They've got the upper hand here, Jay-Z. So
there we go.
Noel doesn't like that. He just likes rock and roll. Paul Weller.
Meat and potatoes.
He doesn't like Phil Collins. He doesn't like rap music. What music does he listen to? Just the Beatles.
Stone Roses, Beatles, and Paul Weller. That's the three things in the stew of Oasis, isn't it? So a big one. I think probably one of the biggest ones, at least for the band themselves. George Harrison did not like Oasis. He said that Liam just shouts instead of sings. He said that if they got rid of Liam, they would be a better band.
Nipple.
Let me see what...
you call George Harrison a nipple.
The person thinking of a nipple, if ever meet him, I'm sorry. And if you're watching it, the nipple.
And like that must be like the most lancing blow. Because Paul McCartney was on Howard Stern years ago as well, and he asked about Oasis in the 90s, and Paul McCartney's like, oh yeah, well they're derivative, aren't they? And it's like, oh, you nasty little bastard, Paul. What a catty little thing to say. But then they seem to be on good terms.
Yeah, but they wouldn't go after Paul, would they? That's like shooting yourself.
No.
But they didn't go after him, but after George said that. So Noel obviously didn't agree with what George said, and he came back and he said, George was always the quiet one. Maybe he should have stayed that way. What the fuck? What the fuck does he know about rock and roll? I love the Beatles, but what does he know about rock and roll?
Yeah, he's got one of the best Beatles solo albums.
Yep.
He was a fucking Beatle.
You're copying his music.
He made it what it is now.
Is that just like a permanent upper hand? It's like he was a Beatle. You can't do anything.
Yeah.
You put any old rubbish out now, it's fine. You're a Beatle.
I mean, the balls have that and say that in the 90s when you don't know what Oasis is going to really be.
Yeah.
You only put like one album, maybe two out.
Yeah.
The fucking goal on that boy.
Yeah, I know, mate.
Gobshite.
He is a little gobshite. Yeah.
I think that's going to do it now, guys. And all we can say is ta-ta to the beef. It's been a wild one. And we hope to see you guys next time. Follow us on social media, like and subscribe. And we'll see you again next week.
Cheers.
You're a cunt.
Yeah.